was I went to a website and I printed off, I think it was 500 business cards. And I told my wife, I said, this is 500 business cards. So by the time I get done with this batch, I will have passed it out to 500 different people. And then if in 500 different people, I can't get any business or any, hey, that's a cool idea, then I'll get a good thermometer of where this is going, and if there is a need, or if I'm crazy, or whatever the case may be. And so, with 50 cents in my pocket and a business card, I would go out on rides, and I would ask the customer, listen, if you had the owner of Uber and Lyft in the car with you, and they said, for the duration of this ride, you have our undivided attention. What do you love? What do you hate about us? What would you tell them?
Welcome to Rochester Business Connections, powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC, where I get the chance to chat with Rochester, New York's very best business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. I am your host, Ben Albert. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, we don't do advertisements. My fee for this show is simple. If you gain value from the episode, personally share with a friend and explain your favorite part. Let's get started. Everyone, welcome to Rochester Business Connections. I am here with Linden of Rock and Ride. Linden, what's going on today? How we doing?
We're doing awesome. Rock and Ride is growing, and we're doing an amazing thing, competing with big dogs and doing a great job of it.
I'm excited for this conversation because I like your story and I like the mission behind Rock and Ride. You basically are what you just said, competing with the big dogs and doing things right. Let me pass it over to you. Let's explain what Rock and Ride is and tell us a little bit about what brought you here today.
So, the start of my journey was being an Uber and Lyft driver myself. And I was able to see firsthand the inadequacies of the system, and the issues that were occurring. And so if you would listen to the news, you would hear drivers complaining about things. You would hear, passengers complaining about things. And so what I did was I just, locked myself in my bedroom, in my office, and said, are these legit complaints? Because, everybody complains. If you wrote them a check for $1 million, they complain it wasn't two. And so we wanted to make sure that these complaints weren't just people complaining for the sake of complaining. And a lot of the complaints I knew were legit just from my experience being that driver, hearing those complaints from my passengers and then from other drivers. And so I had a little bit of a jump on the game with that experience, and just said, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. Uber and Lyft are missing on so many accounts, and they're leaving their riders and their drivers in the dust. And certainly, at least the optics of it was that they didn't care about the rider and the driver. And some of the many complaints that came across was they care so much about the driver that they don't care about about the rider. And then others would say that they cared so much about the rider that they left the driver in the dust. And so really what we did is we brought two sides together. And we looked out at what benefited both. And we're really proud of the fact that we've been able to do that. I tell people we tore Uber and Lyft down to the bare basics, to the bare bones, and threw the bones out the window and built it from the ground up. I'll tell you a quick story that kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was on a ride. It was early morning hours. I forget the exact times, but we're talking 1, 2 o'clock in the morning time frame. But I was about ready to come into this neighborhood to pick up a ride, and there was this car parked odd and out of place. But I said, well, don't worry about it. I'll turn in the neighborhood. People parking out of places all the time. When I put my turning signal on to make the left-hand turn, the car pulled up alongside me, and it was a state trooper. And the state trooper said, "Are you going in here to pick up a ride?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he explained to me the policy and procedure that he wanted me to follow after a quick interview. And we went into the neighborhood, and wouldn't you know it, a sheriff pulled me over. And now my radar's really going that, hey, something's going on. If the sheriffs and the state troopers are in this area looking for potentially my ride, what's going on here? And it was at that time when I rolled down the window to talk to the sheriff that I noticed helicopter noise overhead. And they were looking. They had their spotlight out and they were looking, which went, oh, dear Lord, now what's going on? What have I got myself into, right? To make a long story short, they wound up arresting the gentleman. They found him. He had pinged for a ride and was hoping the Lyft truck vehicle could get into the neighborhood, pick him up, and get him out without being detected by the cops. But our wonderful law enforcement was able to see past that and do their jobs effectively and keep me safe in the process. And after this, I called Lyft and told them my story. And of course, it came up the chain of command, and I got a response back, a phone call back from Lyft. And she was basically the escalations team. And I said, well, the agent that I spoke to said she was going to pass it up the food chain. And she said, yeah, I'm that food chain. Tell me what happened. So we had that conversation, and she said, I'm going to make sure that he gets offboarded, and thank you for telling your story. You kept your head. You cooperated with law enforcement. Thank you for that. Another driver might not have been so cooperative and just kind of drove off and said, screw this, right? And so she thanked me for that. But I said, ma'am, as long as I have you on the phone, can I ask you a question? And she said, sure. And I said, what prevents him from getting out of jail in the next year or two and taking out his vengeance that Lyft got him arrested because the live location told the officers right where he was? I said, so he's mad at Lyft because Lyft got him arrested. So what assurances do I have that he can't create a dummy account and take his anger and aggression for going to jail out on the next Lyft driver, whether that be me or whether that be the next guy? Just, I want to make sure that other drivers are safe as well. I kid you not. Her response was, well, that's a very good question, and that's probably something we need to look into. And I said, ma'am, with all due respect, you've been in business for 10 years and a company that screamed safety and security. That's not something you need to look into. That's a policy you should have had day one. Mm. And she said, you're right. And I'm sorry that we failed you on that front. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and Rock and Ride was created. We've got to do something better to protect the safety and security of both the rider and the driver, and make sure that something like that doesn't happen, and make sure that everybody stays safe and is able to do their job and make some money doing it. But safety and security should be the forefront of any company's policy, let alone that the rideshare industry. And it was that just said, okay, if not me, who, and if not now, when. And I went to work making and creating Rock and Ride, and we've been going ever since. And it's been a journey that I didn't expect would take off so fast, but we have grown to almost global proportions within a year and a half, and it's been an incredible journey. It's been an incredible experience. And if 5 years ago you had told me I would have been the owner and CEO of a glorified cab company, I would have laughed you right in the loony bin. But look where life has taken it, the turns life has taken. And I couldn't be happier with where I am, helping people and keeping people safe. And it's been a pleasure just to see the growth of what we've been able to do. And I expected a little bit more competition from Uber and Lyft. But unfortunately, there was such a disloyalty to any one of those brands, let alone the companies, that it was very easy to preach very simple things and get people saying, where do I sign up? And it confirmed for me just the need for better. And I like telling people, Uber and Lyft created a gig. We created a company. I like, telling people that, Uber and Lyft, while they want that fast profit, there's a difference between just a quick money turnover and looking out for the safety and security of the people who are performing the jobs. And a lot of people have said, one thing about Uber and Lyft is that they don't realize that if you don't have riders and you don't have drivers, they don't have a company, which has made it easy for us to step in, because once you take away those drivers and once you take away those customers, it's easy to compete. And it's been a lot easier than what I anticipated it to be. But at the same time, we still face challenges.
How exactly would you have answered that question that you asked that Lyft rep on that one day, in terms of someone goes to jail, they return, they have incentive to ultimately try to get back at Lyft for getting them arrested? How do you avoid that happening? How do you keep everyone safe?
Well, there's definitely a back end verification process that we have put in place, that you're not able to just put in John Doe and become a driver. You have to get validated and verified. And we've made those steps on both the rider and the driver's side, to a validation process, so that you can't just put in any name you want and be okay and good to go, such as you can do with Uber and Lyft. And so we've changed a lot of the back end processes and verifications to make that more secure. And so what we do is we have checks and balances in place that prevent those dummy accounts from being made, and from and then if we've removed you for whatever reason, we have clear records of the fact that we did it and the reasoning why. And so when it goes through that verification process, we have that database that you cannot reattempt, because that name and that account has been flagged. And so it's a verification process on the back end that ensures that the safety of our riders and drivers are have the confidence that they're not getting it in the car with anybody who's unsafe, whether it be, a driver who has, 3 DWIs on their license, or whether it be, an axe murderer as a customer, getting in their car that would endanger them. And so we've made sure that the safety is our top priority.
Yeah. So you guys ultimately found a problem in terms of safety, in terms of validating and ultimately providing value to both the driver and the rider. You decide to start Rock and Ride. Tell the story. You mentioned you basically started the company with a handful of business cards, right? Tell that story for us.
That is correct. So, what we did, or what I did, I when you start companies, they tell you to go to an uncle or a relative and kind of pitch the idea to them and get them to chuck in the first X amount of dollars. Unfortunately, I'm not that rich, and I don't know anybody that rich. So I really started down at that bare basics level. And so what I did was I went to a website and I printed off, I think it was 500 business cards. And I told my wife, I said, this is 500 business cards. So by the time I get done with this batch, I will have passed it out to 500 different people. And then if in 500 different people, I can't get any business or any, hey, that's a cool idea, then I'll get a good thermometer of where this is going, and if there is a need, or if I'm crazy, or whatever the case may be. And so, with 50 cents in my pocket and a business card, I would go out on rides, and I would ask the customer, listen, if you had the owner of Uber and Lyft in the car with you, and they said, for the duration of this ride, you have our undivided attention. What do you love? What do you hate about us? What would you tell them? And they would be open. They would say, listen, I love this, I hate this, and I'd wish Uber and Lyft would do this better. And at the end of the ride, I would say, well, you didn't have the owner of Uber and Lyft in the car with you. You did, however, have the owner of Rock and Ride, and he listened. And we showed the customer from the top down, me to the people under me, that we were listening to them and we were paying attention to what they were saying. And we would hand out that business card, and they would say, you know what, I love it. And then they would go to our website and they would read about us. And they said, we just love your story. We love what you're doing. We've had several of our contracts come into us that way. They would say, listen, I heard your story. I love it. I want to help you tell it. How can we do that? And it's been amazing. We've actually been approached from global companies seeking partnerships with us, and it's been great. Just from a business card, we had people contact us from Australia. And so we're, in a year and a half, we become globally known. Matter of fact, kind of a funny story. We had somebody who is a great person at what they do. They went into a gas station and they said, listen, I see these business cards all over the gas station. Tell me about your business. And I would tell them about our business and what we do and where we were and how we're growing. And he found out about it through business cards at a gas station. And
Mm.
and at the end of the conversation, I told him, I said, the best part about this is, and he said, what's that? And I said, I didn't put those business cards there. My riders and drivers did. And he goes, that's amazing that when other people are starting to promote you, you're doing something right. Because it's one thing to preach your own message, but to get other people to buy into your message and buy into what you're doing, that's an amazing part. And he's been a wonderful friend since. Introduced me to a lot of influential people across our great city of Rochester. And it was kind of funny. We had a conversation at Panera Bread before COVID started, and we were telling him his story. He said, "Listen," he goes, "there's some people you have to know, and I'm going to make that introduction for you." And you hear that and you say, well, thank you, I appreciate that, but you don't ever expect to hear anything back. I had one guy tell me he knew, a major car dealership, the guy who owned it, and he's like, yeah, man, I'll hook you up. Yeah, turns out he didn't know him all so well. Buying a car from a dealership does not make you friends with the owner. And
Right.
so when he told me, listen, there's some people in Rochester that you need to be connected with, and I will help you get connected with them. By the end of that day, I had been connected with half of the people he had told me he was going to connect me with. And the following day, he connected me with the other half. And it was just an amazing experience and an opportunity to be connected with those people. And, and that's how it works. It's connections, it's growth, it's name recognition, it's name branding. Our brand right now is bigger than I ever thought it could be within the first 2 years of promoting the brand. I really thought it was going to take a while to catch on. I thought it was going to, as a matter of fact, let me tell you a story. It's kind of funny. We were interviewing some people for positions, and this lady, we ended up not hiring her for a couple of reasons, but the story is still amazing. She had her doubts as to how big we were and things. And she said, I've never heard of you before. And I said, well, with all due respect, you're in Georgia. We're in Rochester. There's quite a few miles between us. So I'm not surprised that you haven't heard of us yet. We're fairly new, but this is what we're doing. And she said, I'm going to talk to one of my friends who lives in your city and ask if they've ever heard of you. She goes, because I've never heard of you. And I said, by all means, go ahead and do it. And she came back to me and she said, she's heard of you. She told me exactly who you were and what you've been doing. And I said, now let me rephrase that for you. And she said, okay, I'm listening. I said, in a state of 19.5 million people, you called, not somebody of whose phone number I gave you, and said, yeah, this guy knows who we are. Call him. But somebody you selected, you called and said, hey, have you heard of? And in a state of 19.5 million people, she heard of us. Yeah, that's how small we are. And she sat back in her chair and she said, yeah, you're right. I never thought of it that way. I said, your friend in a crowd of 19.5 million people knew who we were. And that's an amazing story to me, because that shows how, a company that has spent nothing on marketing or advertising, that's how powerful word of mouth is. And it's been an incredible journey. I can't say that enough. It's been a journey that I did not anticipate taking off this fast and growing this big, but it's a journey. It's been a joy to be on. And
Well,
I'm certainly glad that I did it. I took the I took that leap and did it with 50 cents in my pocket and a business card.
yeah, we're glad you did it too. We're glad you took that leap. Congratulations on getting to the size you are today. And obviously, you're looking to expand and grow and go national. How do people get in touch with Rock and Ride? How does someone either get a lift, get a ride from you guys the right way, or ultimately become a driver?
So you would go to our website and you would fill out the form, and it would filter through the right processes, and we would allow you to sign up and stuff. Because we grew so fast. Um, you're gonna go to the website and you're gonna look for sign-ups and things like that. You're not gonna see that, and that's because the website is still under construction. We threw it up as a billboard that we could point people to, because we grew so fast. So if you're looking for a form to sign up to become a driver or a rider, you're not going to find that. But what you're going to do is you're going to fill out that form, and in the comment section be able to tell us, why you're contacting us, and the appropriate people will get in touch with you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And that's it's ROC, the letter N, ride.com. Is that correct?
Yep.
Rock and Ride like Rochester.
ROCNRIDE.com. And the cool part about it is the reason we named it that way is because I was born and raised in Rochester and I love my city. And so we put the name of our city in our name. So no matter how big we get, we always remember our roots and where we came from. And that is the city of Rochester. We want that to be in our name. No matter where we go, which is kind of funny because we've had some people. This little old lady, bless her sweetheart, she called us and said, "Listen, explain to me this rockin' ride." And I explained to her about the city and that we incorporated the name of our city into our company. And she goes, "Oh, okay. I thought it meant like you played rock and roll
Yeah.
music during the rides." I'm like, "Well, ask the driver. I'm sure they could, but no." But we did it because we love the city so much and we want to incorporate it. And so when we ultimately do go global, no matter how big we get, we'll always remember our roots and where we came from, and that is the city of Rochester.
I love it. I love the city, and I appreciate that ultimately you're paying homage to the city no matter how large you grow. Linden, I want to move over to the rapid fire round. Simple either or questions just so the listener can get to know you a little bit better. Sounds
Sure.
good?
Sounds good.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
What about beer or wine?
I don't drink.
Good stuff. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Do you have a favorite season of the year? It's snowing today in Rochester.
I love my four seasons. I can't imagine living anywhere else where I would miss one of those seasons. I tell people all the time, you can have your earthquakes, you can have your tornadoes, you can have your hurricanes. I will take my snow any day of the week.
Yeah, no natural disasters.
Snow I can shovel, it melts and goes away.
Exactly. Do you have a favorite book? Any recommendations there?
I outside of the Bible, I do love a book that I have, that is the story of Sergeant York, and I read that often.
The story of Sergeant York, you said? I'll look into that.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, and it's in my library, but it goes through his story. It's what the movie with Gary Cooper was based off of.
Cool. I'm going to look into that as soon as we hop off this call. Linden, obviously, thank you. I hope the best for Rock and Ride. I love that you're paying respect to your city. I think it's amazing your entrepreneur spirit, building so quickly to the point that you have to pivot, and the website's not even ready yet. You're moving so fast. I'm just excited for you. I'm wondering, Linden, if I had known you better, if I had known your business better, is there anything that I should have asked you that we maybe missed on?
Um, no, I don't think so. It's just it's amazing. I think the only thing, the only backstory that might have been missed was our family, and that has been a journey and a half, and I think only prepared me for this journey ahead. My wife and I, when we got married, we had difficulties. Our pastor said, some people um, don't even encounter these issues until they get married,
Mm,
and you've faced these issues before then, and our pastor even said, there's nothing that's going to get the two of you to divorce, because if you guys were going to divorce over anything, you would have divorced over circumstances that you've already faced. And so that's a tribute to my wife and I. The situations and the hardships that we endured just brought us closer together, despite people's attempts to drive us apart. And you know, my parents, people were taking bets the day they got married that they wouldn't last 6 months, and they're coming up on 49 years. And there were people who were maybe not taking bets on how long we would last, but just not having confidence in the foundation that we had laid. And most of it was a lack of knowledge of the foundation that had been laid between my wife and I. And we're 16 years this June, and I've got she'll be 14-year-old daughter in January, and who wants to grow up and be a doctor. And so she's smart and intelligent, and all kidding aside, she really does take after her mother. In intelligence and looks, she takes after her mother. Well, I shouldn't say looks, I should say beauty. A lot of people say she looks like me, but she takes after her mother in beauty.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Linden. It's been a pleasure to have you on Rock and Ride. Everybody, if you haven't heard of it, you have now, and you're going to see more and more from Linden and his company. Thanks again for coming on the show, man.
There is a growing call among people who know me that I run for governor in 2022, and their reasoning behind it is, if you could bring the riders and the drivers together who were at odds and striking, what could you do among Democrats and Republicans? And so there's a growing demand for that, and we'll see where that goes. But just kind of leave you with that.
Linden 2021. We'll see what happens.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks for listening to Rochester Business Connections. Don't forget to share this, rate, and comment on your favorite platform. You can also email me, ben@balbertmarketing.com. Let's connect soon. Until then, keep thriving, everyone.